Before performing any experiment in a lab, always remember your personal protective equipment. Have your lab coat on, buttoned all the way to the top, your gloves, your mask, your goggles, and if you have long hair, make sure to tie it back. To begin preparing the malt agar, first rinse your glassware with deionized water to remove any residual contaminants on the glassware. So this includes rinsing your glass Erlenmeyer flask and your graduated cylinder. Pour a small amount of deionized water into your glassware and rotate that deionized water all around the glass. Once you have rinsed your graduated cylinder, fill it up with deionized water up to the 1,000 milliliter mark. Next, we will measure out our malt agar. Begin by placing your weight boat onto the weight scale and tearing the scale to read 0 because remember, we do not want to measure the weight boat, we only want to measure our malt agar. Once your scale reads 0, begin pouring in your malt agar. Here, we are aiming for 50 grams of agar in 1,000 mLs of water. Remember, if you ever end up pouring a bit too much, it's perfectly okay to grab a scoopula and pick some up and put it back into your malt agar jar. Take that 1,000 ml water you poured into your graduated cylinder and pour half of that water into your glass Erlenmeyer flask. Next, you are gently going to slide in your stir bead by first tilting your Erlenmeyer flask. You do not want to drop your stir bead directly in because it will shatter glassware. After your stir bead is in, take your 50 grams of malt agar and pour it into your Erlenmeyer flask. Try to aim to pour it directly down the middle and avoid getting agar on the sides of the flask. As you're pouring in the remaining water from the graduated cylinder, if you notice agar on the sides of your Erlenmeyer flask, try to wash it away with that water. Next, you are going to prepare a tinfoil cap for your flask so your liquid does not boil and evaporate away inside the autoclave. So prepare a fist-like shape and put it on the top of your flask, and remember to leave a bit of airspace at the top of your flask. Do not tightly wrap the tinfoil at the top. You want that extra airspace for the steam. So next, take a piece of your autoclave tape and tape it all the way around your tinfoil to ensure that it stays on your flask. Place your mixture onto the hot plate and turn on the stir function to about 210 RPMs. Then, turn the temperature up and allow your mixture to heat up to ensure that everything is thoroughly mixed and homogeneous before placing it in the autoclave. As the mixture heats up, what we're looking for is this shallow vortex formed from that stir bead, which is mixing and combining everything inside the Erlenmeyer flask. Before handling anything inside the autoclave, remember to put on your thermo autoclave gloves. The autoclave is very hot and it can reach the temperatures to 100 degrees. You do not want to burn yourself, so never forget your thermo gloves. And be sure to put your flask inside an autoclave bucket to prevent any spillage that may happen. For this mixture, you are going to run a liquid 30 cycle. Always recheck to make sure the autoclave says liquid 30 before running this cycle. As the receipt prints, be sure to make note of the cycle counter number and record it on the sign-in sheet on the side of the autoclave. Remember to include your name and the name of your PI. Once the cycle is complete, put your thermo gloves back on and remove the autoclave bucket. Place your flask onto a hot plate and turn on the stir function to about 210 RPMs. Allow the mixture to cool before plating. If you are not going to plate it immediately, turn on the heat to 55 degrees to keep the mixture hot. As you allow the mixture to cool, once it reaches 50 degrees, add in your ampicillin. Place the tinfoil cap back onto your flask to prevent any air contaminants from entering your mixture, and then place the mixture back onto the hot plate for one final mix before plating. And now you've made malt agar.